Okay, guys, hey, back here again. We're gonna read a creepypasta. I think this is really one interesting. The Amazing World of Gumball, The Grieving. So today we're gonna be reading this creepypasta. And don't worry, I already have a thumbnail for this video, so it won't take too long for the thumbnail to get out. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Do you have anything to say, Abby?
No.
Okay. Alright, let's get started. Abby, don't make any noise, please. I've always loved Cartoon Network. When I was growing up, it was my favorite channel to watch. Adventure Time and Regular Show were one of the newest shows on the network. The Amazing World of Gumball is a cute and mildly entertaining show. Not really my cup of tea. It's a little immature, but my brother seems to like it a lot. One day I was watching Adult Swim when I realized I'd been up so late that I haven't kept track of the time. It was already 4 a.m. I don't ever recall watching as this late. So I stayed awake to see what would happen when it ended. A little bumper showed up at the bottom of the screen during a commercial break that said a special episode of The Amazing World of Gumball was about to come on. I was a little confused about an episode of a very popular new show coming on this early, but I was bored and decided I would watch it, thinking it might come on later in the day so I could spoil it for my little brother. Sort of mean, I know. The flashy and energetic intro theme played, although it was a little different than I recall. The music was a little different, and the show logo wasn't animated. Its colors were rather sloppy as well. Almost done if a little kid would do on a doodle board or a glow board. I ignored it, assuming it was done just for the special episode. The title of the episode was The Grieving. A little sort of sad title, but I didn't really pay too much attention. It began with Gumball, the show's 12-year-old protagonist, standing alone, facing the corner of his dimly lit classroom. He looked absolutely miserable, a far cry from a cheerful demeanor. He was usually had There was no one else in the room, not even his best friend and adopted brother. Oh, okay, never mind. Hold up, sorry guys. The goldfish, and the windows in the room showed the night sky outside. I was really starting to get confused. Why would he be at the school at night? And why was he standing in the corner all sad and alone? After what seemed like a minute of Gumball standing somberly in the corner, the scene suddenly changed. We're in Gumball's house. Once again, the scene is silent and a little disgusting. Richard, Gumball, enormous rabbit father, walks into the kitchen. He looked even more miserable than Gumball had in the previous scene. Richard isn't wearing his usual attire. He's dressed in a fancy black suit, a little uncharacteristic of him, and usually a slob. He sighs and slumps down onto the sofa and starts somberly, intensely, sounding like someone who just lost something important. I was starting to get a little creeped out. Where was the silly fun cartoon I usually look forward to watching with my little brother, or younger brother? This was something completely different. I was beginning to think we might have something the creators did as an experiment or something. A test animation sound perhaps thought I could have been, aside from the opening theme. Well, it still was different than shows. The SpongeBob episode has been much quieter. It usually only subtitles sound, very little music, and the animation was not anything to write home about either. It was done in a bit amateur flash on new grounds. The character designs were somewhat sloppy and rushed looking, and the real-life background used looked different. As confused or frightened as I was, for some reason I kept watching. Poor Richard was still sobbing on the sofa as the front door suddenly opened, making me jump a bit at such a loud noise, and Gumball's mother, Nicole, blue cat like him, stepped in. Like Richard, she wasn't wearing her usual outfit. For some reason she was wearing a black dress and was wearing a pretty black hat to match it. Nicole sat down on a couch to comfort her husband, although looking a bit sad herself. By this point, Richard's crying began to get more pained and miserable sounding. This wasn't the normal cartoon crying on the show. This was more realistic and almost depressing crying. Finally, after seemed like hours, the sad scene at the home ended, and as it shifted back to the school, we weren't in Gumball's classroom this time. We were in Principal Brown's office. Nicole and Richard were in their unusual clothes, looking more normal and happy than they had before, but still slightly worried. Principal Brown, though, however, looked extremely sad. He was quite somberly informed that the children, Anais and Darwin, were not present after lunch earlier that day. They hadn't been seen at all the rest of the day. Nicole was instantly furious at him, began spouting various F-word and calls at him. I don't think would have made it on a more immature program like regular show. I was laughing at this because it seemed sort of funny that for Nicole to flip out in a manner and start swearing like a sailor in a G-rated cartoon. But an outlook might soon be gained chance when Principal Brown told her else after she finally had quieted down. His eyes began to tear up as he informed they were eventually found, but they have not been found alive. He went sitting into graphic and nearly nauseating detail describing how their bodies were found. Their parents sitting in an utter shock. I could have hardly believed what was happening. How could a cheery and fun kid show be talking about dark and twisted turn? I was considering about turning the television off, but I was too scared to be left in the dark. Now nearly frozen by fear and disturbed intensely how terrible things he was saying. Another flashback of the scene earlier that day, and the animation in the scene was even worse than earlier. I don't remember it very clearly, but all I remember was that recollection by saying the school had called the police department when they first turned up missing, believing that the kids simply ran off to skip school. They said that was very uncharacteristic of both Darwin and Anais to go skipping school like the delinquents. Darwin was a little naive and a bit disty, but he was a good kid and wouldn't dream of doing something like that, and Anais was even less likely to run away. She was a straight-A student, despite being only 4, which troubled the police, seeing as a defenseless 4-year-old girl as well as an older boy. The school had been thoroughly checked, so police who had to search a heavily wooded area outside the school. It took them a little time before discovering the horrifying face of Anais. It was a small clearing outside of the school. Anais' head was found in a small box. You'd likely have expected something like that to be shown in a show's cutesy art style, but it was nothing like that. Realistic blood covered the box. Inside of all her, apparently, was a note in the box, seemingly written in her blood. It stated that during the episode, exactly what was written on the note, but apparently led to the rest of the remains of Darwin's heavily mutilated corpse. What I remembered most about this scene was how this place seemed, although the blood and gore from Darwin and Anais' slaughtered and dismembered remains was done in a very realistic and disturbing way. It looked like the scene had been taken from a crime scene, a photo done by a professional, not like from a cartoon. This scene was animated and different from most of the show. You might know that characters from the series have been vastly different in the animation style from the Flash to the CGI, and I think that character's been putting upside down face to face. This particular scene wasn't due anything seen in the show before. Every little detail of Darwin's face was clearly illustrated. He looked like a zombie. His face was very pale, and he gouged out by someone. And Anais fared no better, or what was left of her anyway. She was naked, and her stomach was been slit open. Her intestines strewn around the tree and the bushes. Once done, very morbid, realistic style. I was feeling very ill by incredibly storing fast back, so I had to come to an end. I quickly ran to the bathroom to vomit. I was feeling a little better after upchucking, so I realized that it was no use at the bathroom's commercial. It turned twice has been running twice as long. It usually ran for 11 minutes, but this episode was about 30. By the time I was wondering if on grieving or on IMDb or something. So while the commercials were still playing, I looked up for some information about this episode on Google. Nothing came up. No information remotely similar to the plot or episode existed anywhere. Now, incredibly scared, I wondered if anybody else was watching this. I quickly dialed my brother Larry and asked him to turn Cartoon Network on and see if anybody else was watching the same shit I was. He was pretty mad that I woke him up at this hour, but he's a nice guy and told me if he would. I thanked him and stayed on the line until the scene thickly panned away from the horrific sight of the children mutilated and turned back to the scene crying, since that was they were doing on my TV. To surprise, he said that he saw nothing like that, and instead told a rerun of an old Looney Tunes cartoon. In a shock, I dropped the phone and ran over to the TV to press it as hard as the buttons, but it would not shut it off at all. I tried every single button, and none of them would do a thing. I tried unplugging the whole thing, but the TV swerved, and the TV stayed on no matter what. Larry hung up, assuming it was a joke, I guess, and my door was locked outside somehow, and the bathroom door was now locked as well. It seemed that I had no choice but to call the police, since all my other family members were gone that night. For some reason, why did I stay up so late watching Adult Swim in the first place? When I hurriedly dialed the number, I accidentally dropped my cell phone into my cup of Pepsi. Very scared, I had no choice but to finish the phone and reach under the cover. I was hiding like my little brother does when I make him watch scary movies with me. I had missed a little part, but Gumball's parents were still talking to Principal Brown. That shocked me. It didn't seem that way. The police called once again to search the building for junior high. They had found Miss Simeon's classroom hanging from blood behind him and a covering noose. The credits rolled silently, not like the usual cartoon annoyingly airs after a promo sequences had the screen. These credits rolled unusually slow, and they were a little creepy, with white text scrolling on the background. I only recognized Ben Backlund's name. The rest of the creator shows were people I'd never heard of before. The copyright notice said Cartoon Network Studios 2001, which was incredibly odd, seeing the studio was new for 2011. After that, I was all over. I screened and static for a split second, turning on to some incredibly shocking videos after the clip. The static videos that scared me for life. The way the suit in the film had a red light that freaks me out incredibly shone over the clip. The next video began moving very quickly. It was a kid's face squished by a woman's high heels, which was very strange because a so-called friend of mine sent me a picture yesterday of a cat being stepped on and killed, similar to the kid in the video. The last one was disturbing and mostly made me want to both cry and vomit my guts out. It was my little brother, or at least a small child, who looked similar to him, being shot in the face by a person that looked like my father. You could clearly hear the child's bleeding brains and blood splattered onto the wall. We were going to stop uncontrollably me after that clip, so much that I passed out. When I woke up, my door was unlocked, my television was turned off, and I went to call the police home phone in my kitchen to report that I saw some very disturbing things on the TV. They were very angry at me, but they just assumed I had a bad nightmare, and they weren't sure. Good thing I recorded that episode, the dinner. At dinner, I remembered my family was out visiting. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm going really fast because my videos can only be 50 minutes, so. The whole squad of police cars and government agents were at my house. They tried to explain my little brother went missing and my father were major suspects. I was freaking out trying to tell them my most disturbing sick of a boy that looked at my brother being shot in the head, but they wouldn't listen. I stayed with my older brother Larry, who wouldn't believe me either, still insisting that it was just an old Looney Tunes cartoon on, but nothing at all or weird. The cops eventually told me that they would contact Turner Studios about them and tell them the incident. As a representative of Turner Broadcast came to my house and talked to me in private of what I seen last night. He was very kind and was in some upfront. After I told him, guys, I don't think I'm going to finish this. Tell him all I remembered. He agreed to play back the day's programming when the incident disturbing happened. To my shock, the airing at that time was an old Looney Tunes short. Nothing more, nothing less. I hysterically sobbed and moaned. The experience was completely real, but no one listened. I discovered Ben Rockwell had a Twitter account, so I messaged and got a reply. One thing, how the heck did you find this? I never, ever was an old shame again. Don't tell anyone this, Zara. Yes, that's my name. But the amazing world of Gumball goes back further than you know. I have a really boring job as a teen, sketching little dolls with the wash thing. The episode we were supposed to have seen was not even a joke, but it was an event. A guy from my old job who had lost a child to a crazy serial killer and was apparently still out there somewhere anyway. So we made the clip and we buried it somewhere on the countryside. What I don't know is that he could have got the clip and he could have done it. We're not that sick. I'm deeply sorry, but We just don't know what happened that day. He could have completely edited the serial killer and then tuned it to your TV location. I don't know. Just good luck. Alright guys, that's it. Alright guys, see you guys later.